couple weeks ago, we made the last-minute decision to sail here, to Statia. This hidden gem never made it to our list of islands that we would sail to while in the Eastern Caribbean. Honestly, we didn't even know it existed. So as you can imagine, we hadn't done much research on what there was to do or see here. Statia is 8.1 square miles and can fit easily inside of Disney World 5 times. So we were surprised to find out that it's home to more historical artifacts per square meter than any other country in the world. And when you're walking around town, you can see it everywhere, even down to finding artifacts along our morning walks.
Bubby, time to eat. Good morning, guys. We have a packed full day today. But first, we're gonna enjoy a little breakfast. Some of Mr. Hazel's amazing tomatoes. And bacon. We haven't had bacon in ages.
Oh, yummy.
Mm.
So, the other night we met a couple of archaeologists here in town, and we're really excited today. They're going to take us around and show us the history of the island. And we are really surprised that this tiny little island has such a huge amount of history. So, we're going to pop into town and check it out. But first, breakfast.
Every last drop. Oh, jeez.
Don't judge me.
You're ridiculous!
If you come to Statia, you'll definitely get your workout in. You have to climb the hill most of the time to get anywhere.
Little tiny island just formed by a volcano, so expect to be climbing a volcano every time you come. Whew. But today, we are meeting up with some local archaeologists to learn more about the intense history that is here in the island. Since we're not the experts, we'll let them tell you.
Alex and I work for the Eustatius Center for Archaeological Research.
SECAR for short.
SECAR for short, which is a non-profit organization here on the island. And what we do is several different things, but they all have to do with history and archaeology. So we organize student field schools, for example. We do commercial archaeological projects. So for example, prior to any construction activities, it is required by law to have archaeological research carried out. We do public outreach. We set up small exhibitions at times as well.
Presentations also for the public.
One of the things that we also do, that we've been doing mostly the last couple of years, is underwater research. And we do that through an organization that we founded, which is called the Shipwreck Survey. So Eustatius Center for Archaeological Research, or SECAR for short, works together with the Shipwreck Survey basically, and it's all kind of connected.
Have you guys been out there and digging around and you see potential for like a new site?
You mean not in the water?
Yeah.
And so what happened a couple of years ago in 2017, As you may remember, we had hurricanes Irma and Maria pass through, and they stirred up the seafloor a lot.
They're very helpful for us.
Yeah, it's very helpful for us. And there were places in the bay, for example, at the Triple Wreck dive site, where an area where it's normally all sand next to the reef, and there were now big craters of like 3-4 feet deep. Just moved, all the sand was moved, and basically just shipwreck sites just completely exposed.
Nice.
So basically what we're finding is a shipwreck, or a wreck of a ship, but without the wood. So all the nails and fasteners are there, all the ballast is there, hundreds and hundreds of Dutch yellow bricks that were used in the hull as ballast.
Trust me, we counted them all.
And so that's probably the only positive effect of a hurricane, is that it provides us with years of research. This island was first permanently settled by the Dutch in 1636. Changed hands 22 times in the course of only 180 years between the British, French and the Dutch, till the Dutch finally gained permanent control in 1816. So the island has been Dutch for over 2 centuries now. When the Dutch came here, 1636, they came to the island. They didn't really find much except a dilapidated fort right here that the French expedition had built a couple of years before. Didn't really last very long. The French left, and then the Dutch came in and they thought, hey, it's a nice fort. Let's strengthen this with some cannons and expand this. And eventually, over the years, this became Fort Oranje, the way it is now. But this final shape, the way you see it now, that only was finished in the mid-18th century, in about 1750s.
So this is where the wooden drawbridge would have been. And below, the moat. And what do you think they filled the moat with? Well, it wasn't water, and it wasn't sea monsters, which was my guess. What do you think? Comment below. We'll tell you later.
But in the mid 17th century, sugar became so popular and in such high demand in Europe that eventually all plantations were converted into sugar plantations. And we have maps and drawings of the island from the mid 18th century, and you can see even high up the slopes of the volcano as well. Everything is under cultivation, and almost all of it is sugarcane. The island was never really a successful plantation colony. So the Dutch, they turned to their commercial instincts in 1756, and they said, you know what, we'll turn this island into a free port. So the problem that most planters here in the Caribbean had, take for example a planter on St. Kitts, he was subjected to the Navigation Acts, which means that he was only allowed to sell the sugar and the rum he produced to the British Crown. And King George, he decided on the price. So these people, they can only make as much money as the mother country wanted them to make. It's a bit of an issue, right? Yeah. So Eustatius said, you know, we'll turn this into a free port. You can sell and buy everything you want here, all tax-free, at any price you want. So what happened is then, the British planter on St. Kitts, he may have gotten 1 shilling for a pound of sugar if he sold it to King George, but he could have gotten 2 shillings if he sold it here. So what is he going to do? It's not allowed, but he was still doing it. Right. So by the late 18th century, the island itself only produced about 600,000 pounds of sugar, but it was exporting 20 million pounds. So 19.5 million pounds came from the British and French sugar islands all around here.
I'm guessing the English weren't too happy with this.
They were not happy with that at all. Yeah, let's go over there so we have a little view of the bay. The lower town, which you see here, and you've seen all these ruins around, obviously. This was a mile-long strip of an estimated 200 warehouses, brothels, shops, taverns, merchant homes, where all these goods were stored and sold. By 1777, we had 3,500 ships dropping anchor here every year, and they came from all around the world. We know from eyewitness accounts that at any given time there could be between 150 and 200 ships at anchor here, especially if these ships stay a bit longer. So it's crazy, right? But besides all these things being traded here, perhaps most importantly, also lots of arms, ammunition and gunpowder. And I'm sure that you've heard the story. During the Revolutionary War, the rebels needed all of those supplies, war material, and they got most of that from the Dutch through St. Eustatius. On November 16, 1776, a North American brig sails into the harbor here, Andrea Doria. Its captain is Isaiah Robinson, captain of the Navy, of the newly formed Navy. Didn't look like a naval ship, but it was one. So, ship drops anchor, it fires a salute, 13 guns. Commander here in the fort fires a return salute, 11 guns. And even though they did not intend it, this act was interpreted by many as the first official recognition of the United States as an independent nation by a foreign power. The British found out because there were several sailors pressed onto the ship. One of them jumped off, managed to get the St. Kitts, told the governor what happened there, and this whole thing was blown way out of proportion. So the British were not happy with that. But what they were especially not happy about is that we kept supplying the rebels with all these arms and ammunition. So this lasted a couple of years, this situation, until eventually in December 1780, the British declared war on the Netherlands over this very issue. This is the Fourth Anglo-Dutch War. 2 months later, a fleet of 24 warships sails into the harbor here under the command of Admiral George Bridges Rodney, 3,000 troops on board. And the British said, the island's ours now. And you know what the commander in the fort said? Please take it. Because I only have a few dilapidated guns here. There were hundreds of cannons aimed at this town. Thousands of troops ready to come aboard. The station garrison numbered at max 60 people, and they were all drunks and vagrants, and they're not trained for this.
This weird little structure is the armory. They used to pack gunpowder and weapons and stuff in there. So it's gotta be really strong. It is like super thick, but it also has a shape like a square with an arch. That's to hopefully contain a blast, but I wouldn't want to be around if this thing blew up. You see this shape a lot throughout the island. A lot of cemetery graves are built like that. The cisterns are like that. And they even have a hurricane house that's built like this.
Those are really sharp. I wouldn't want to climb over those. Remember what we said filled the moat? It was the acacia tree. Really sharp and pointy. Definitely would do some damage. But the French pirates were a little bit smarter than the rest. They went into town, got a bunch of mattresses, threw it over the trees, and that's how they were able to get into the fort. We just got here in the Dutch Reformed Church, which was formed in 1755. The neat thing about this church was it actually served as a beacon for the sailors because there's not a lighthouse, never has been, on the island. So they plastered the northwest wall of the tower white so they could see it from far away. I don't really think that there was a real big reason to have a lighthouse because pretty much Statia just comes shooting out of the ocean. There's not a lot of reefs surrounding it that they can run their boats into, so you're pretty safe here in Statia, especially if you have a long draft. But it's a beautiful, beautiful structure.
This is the grave of former Governor Jan de Wind. He was in charge of the island from 1753 to 1775, so 22 years. There's writing on it in Dutch. It talks a bit about him and about his life. He did a lot of good for the island. He improved the defenses a lot. He had several batteries built, and one we'll visit later. He also ensured that the Jewish communities on the island, the Sephardic and the Ashkenazi, they managed to live together peacefully. And as a thank you for that, the Jewish community had this tombstone made, including the skull and crossbones here. And as you can see, up on the skull, there is a winged hourglass. And this is Jewish symbology for someone who died before his time had come.
There are 109 marked graves here in the churchyard, dating back from 1762 to current. They also discovered unmarked graves, which were probably from the 1776 smallpox epidemic.
Also, Rude told us that there are a bunch of family shared graves here. And whenever a family member passes away, they bust down the entrance, put the body in, and seal it back up.
And you can really see all of the layers of mortar that they've put up after they've closed it off.
Tell
Look how straight this wall is. It is like perfect. Just goes to show you how skilled the enslaved people that built this church were. Man. They built pretty much every structure on this island. All of the material they used on island was used for this church. Basalt stones, red and yellow brick, and even Bermuda limestone. And it's all held together with a lime mortar, which, if you guys want the recipe, it is a mixture of shell and coral, heated up, then cooled down, crushed, and then mixed with sand and water. And that can withstand a Category 5 hurricane, which is crazy. Plantation owners here on Statia weren't quite like the rest in the world. They actually allowed their enslaved people to grow their own crops. And any leftover crops that they had, they could sell here. This park actually used to be a marketplace where not just crops were sold, but also like gossiping happened and, you know, other goods were sold. But some were able to sell enough to where they could actually buy their freedom.
You getting your workout in?
Yeah, these are cool.
We gotta catch up with the group.
All right, we'll have to come back to this. This is a really good idea.
So I don't know if you know much about the Jewish religion. I only know the very basics. So the cantor, there was no rabbi here in the island. There was a cantor who fulfilled the function of like leading the ceremonies. He would stand on the other side there against the wall. Men would be sitting right here on the ground floor, and then on the upper level would be women. And as you can see here, you have all these slots in the wall. So there used to be a balcony all around. And the women would sit on top and look down like that. So archaeologists excavated in here back in the 80s already, from the College of William and Mary. And what they found is a layer of beautiful white sand, like you would find on Anguilla's beaches. And their theory was that this would symbolize the Jews' continuous wandering through the desert, basically. And that's why that was in here. It must have been really nice to sort of walk on and be in, right?
This has got to be my favorite building out of all of them. It's just so pretty, and just, I love the structure. The windows are perfect, and I love the yellow brick. It's just so gorgeous.
So, if you go and stomp through here, there's going to be a sound difference when you go.
Oh, yeah, you can totally hear it right here.
Oh, wow.
You can hear this echo. That means that underneath it is hollow. So the theory is that there is a tunnel that runs under here, though no one knows exactly where it starts or ends.
Wow.
And one of the things we want to do one day is find that, and maybe ground penetrating radar would be a good indicator to see if there's actually a tunnel under here and give you an indication of where it goes. And yeah.
There's some treasure buried in
Right?
there.
You never know.
Huh.
Secret tunnel of Statia.
The structure.
So this channel in the 18th century, as you can imagine, was extremely busy. There was a lot of trade happening between St. Kitts and Statia, but also a lot of ships that would come from further south. They would also have to go past this channel, right? In the mid-18th century, there was lots of piracy and privateering going on as well. And there's numerous accounts in the documentary record of ships, merchant vessels being preyed on by pirates and privateers right here. And that's one of the reasons why this battery was built as well, to protect this channel. So not necessarily to protect this island, but to protect the merchants who were coming to trade on this island, and this island was living off of.
The race is on. We're trying to get up to the fort before the sun sets.
So today when we were doing our tour, Rude said that the fort was a great place to go and have sunset
Dinner?
So
Snacks?
we put together some little snacks and we're gonna head over and hopefully catch it before the sun sets. It smells so good through here. So I don't have any dishes to put anything in, so we're just gonna have,
Doesn't have to be pretty.
get my chef look on.
Now the mad dash to try to get everything ready before the sun completely sets. Good night, guys. Thanks for watching.
Cheers.